The heart of evolution, the fundamental teachings. Questioner: is there then, from the point of view of an individual who wishes to follow the service to others path from our present position in third density, is there anything of importance other than disciplines of personality, knowledge of self, and strengthening of will? I am Ra. This is technique. This is not the heart. Let us examine the heart of evolution. Let us remember that we are all one. This is the great learning teaching. In this unity lies love. This is the great learned teaching. In this unity lies light. This is the fundamental teaching of all planes of existence in materialization. Unity, love, light, and joy. This is the heart of evolution of the spirit. The second ranking lessons are learned, taught in meditation and in service. At some point, the mind-body-spirit complex is so smoothly activated and balanced by the central thoughts or distortions that the techniques you have mentioned become quite significant. However, the universe, its mystery unbroken, is one. Always begin and end in the Creator, not in technique. Kundalini. Inner Seeking meets the Cosmic Prana. Part 1. North and South Pole. In the infinite universes, there is only one energy. It is what the Confederation calls love, light, love, or intelligent energy. Ra says that the origin of all energy is the action of free will upon love. The nature of all energy is light. The means of ingress into the mind-body-spirit complex is duple. What are the duple means of ingress? The upward spiraling universal light energy moves through the south, or negative, pole of our magnetic system of energy centers. The downward spiraling inner light moves through the north, or positive, pole of our magnetic system of energy centers. The locus, where these two energies meet within the system, is the measure of the entity's level of ray activity. This locus moves upward as the entity becomes more polarized. Earth traditions describe the energy being raised as Kundalini. Ra says that it may be better conceived as the meeting place of the outer and the inner natures. Questioner: what would be the recommended process for correctly awakening the Kundalini? I am Ra. We have two types of energy. We are attempting then to move the meeting place of the inner and the outer natures, the meeting place of these two energies further and further along, or upward along the energy centers. The two methods of approaching this with sensible method are, first, the seeding within oneself of those experiences, which are attracted to the entity through the South Pole. South Pole, red ray. The south, or magnetically speaking, negative pole of the energy system has a physical locus that is identified with the root, or red ray, energy center. What is the energy being attracted to and through it? Ra gives the energy various names, including cosmic prana, universal light energy, the energy of life itself, the upward spiraling light, the outer nature. They say about this energy that its point of ingress may be seen as coming through the feet, from the earth, and through the lower points of the spine. However, this cosmic prana, the energy of life itself, doesn't just come through the red ray, it is attracted. The south, or negative pole, is one which attracts. It pulls unto itself those things magnetized to it. The most important concept to grasp about the energy field is that the lower, or negative pole, will draw the universal energy into itself from the cosmos. This drawing, pulling action may perhaps be the primary mechanism whereby we attract certain people or life circumstances to us, as they are needed, desired by our unique energetic configurations. The same would hold true in reverse as we are drawn to others. There is a great deal that could be explored on this point alone, including how much of this attraction is a function of pre-incarnational programming and subconscious desire. This would mean that without conscious awareness or intention, we are attracting people and situations to ourselves that precipitate learning and, not infrequently, suffering. Because we are not conscious of the attractive mechanism at work, we may see things as happening to us. But the law of responsibility indicates that one's journey is a function of the operation of one's free will. If this attractive force works on a subconscious level, how can it be enhanced or even harnessed by the conscious mind? On the conscious level, this could mean setting intentions using concentration, visualization, and other forms of strengthening the will. I see awakening to spiritual seeking as an act of making this attractive force conscious and eventually directing it consciously. Of this energy attracted to us, Ra says that this point of ingress of the universal light energy is undifferentiated until it begins its filtering process through the energy centers. Before this upward spiraling light meets the red ray, it has not been colored or prismed into the various aspects of our psyche and experience. It is white light, meaning that it is, in theory, the same energy of life that greets and is available to everyone on this planet before each person begins distorting, blocking, and coloring it. But what is the filtering process? Each experience will be sequentially understood by the growing and seeking mind-body-spirit complex in terms of survival, red ray, then in terms of personal identity, orange ray, then in terms of social relations, yellow ray, then in terms of universal love, green ray, then in terms of how the experience may beget free communication, blue ray, then in terms of how the experience may be likened to universal energies, indigo ray, and finally in terms of the sacramental nature of each experience, violet ray. This filtering of the cosmic prana constitutes the general experience of our lived lives in a physical world, from our personalities to our relationships to our social identity, to our bodies and so much of our minds. This energy forms the walls of both our personal and collective reality and identity. It is our outer nature. That outer nature is affected and transformed by its meeting with the inner nature. How do we work with this energy? Each experience will need to be observed, experienced, balanced, accepted, and seated within the individual as the entity grows in self-acceptance and awareness of catalysts. The location of the comfortable seating of these experiences will rise to the new true color entity. You can read that as Ra offering a basic schematic for using catalysts, or to put that another way, basic instructions for how to use the material of your life. And as an entity grows in self-acceptance and awareness of catalysts, the location of the comfortable seating of these experiences will rise to the new true color. The yellow ray entity will become the green ray entity, the green ray, the blue ray, and so forth. This is the work of transformation. Each ascent of the energy upwards in the chakra system raises the vibration, expands the point of view, awakens the self from the dream, and ultimately merges self with Creator. The crossing of thresholds may be accomplished by challenges, crisis, initiations, or even death and rebirth. Though the South Pole energy is not limited to the first three energy centers, working with this energy through the first triad is extremely important for a number of reasons, including those with blockages in these first three energy centers will have continuing difficulties in ability to further their seeking of the law of one. But remember, we are talking about two sensible methods of raising that locus of Kundalini energy. Working with the cosmic prana streaming through the South Pole is just one of these two. North Pole, violet ray. Moving on to the second method, we continue where we left off. Meanwhile, the Creator lies within. In the North Pole, the crown is already upon the head, and the entity is potentially a god. This energy is brought into being by the humble and trusting acceptance of this energy through meditation and contemplation of the self and of the Creator. This is the north or positive magnetic pole of the energy system, identified with the violet ray energy center or crown chakra. What is this energy which is brought into being? Ra has even more names for this energy, including the inner nature, the inner light, the inward fire, the Polaris of self, the North Star, the guiding star, the birthright, the heart of being, the indwelling creator awaiting or abiding within, the true nature of all entities. This energy is the home of the mystics. It points to the second or tandem aspect of awakening and raising the Kundalini, the recognition that meanwhile, on the other end of the magnetic energy system, the creator lies within. This energy does not meet and come into the self as does the cosmic prana of the South Pole. No, this energy is within. In the North Pole, as Ra says, the crown is already upon the head. In the word already is the understanding that the crown isn't earned or gained. Just as one's feet are not earned or gained, the feet are already at the end of one's legs. In the crowned awareness, the entity is. When the indigo ray intelligent energy is penetrated, a logos, and the entity is. When violet ray intelligent infinity is penetrated, one with the creator. This indwelling energy of the North Pole is brought into being. Ra says, by the humble and trusting acceptance of this energy through meditation and contemplation of the creator, of the self as the creator, of the self as a being of infinite worth, of the self as perfect as it is. What is the humble and trusting acceptance of this energy? This may be seen to be closely aligned with those qualities, faith, grace, and surrender. I read humbleness as giving over the personal will, along with attachment to personal identity, to that which is greater than the individual self. One humbly recognizes that power, love, and wisdom do not reside within the separate self, per se, but rather those qualities of being come through the separate self from the Creator, the All-Self. I read trusting as the opening to faith. We release the small expectations we impose upon reality so that reality may reveal its greater self. In this release, we let go of fear, resistance, and our clinging to the mortal frame. We boldly take the great step into the unknown which no support but midair. We do not need to understand or comprehend, as Ra says. Indeed, we cannot understand or comprehend. Instead, we seek the keys to unknowing. We release control. We trust. Ra uses humble and trusting as adjectives of acceptance. What is it we are accepting when we accept this energy? That is an answer best left for self-contemplation. But perhaps it can be said that we are accepting our deepest selves, accepting that which is perceived as positive and that which is perceived as negative, the light and the shadow, the infinite and the finite. We are accepting the moment in whatever guise it may appear. What I love about this understanding is that it communicates how the gateway exists within you right now. The Confederation describes how various teachings can guide, inform, inspire, and clarify the path. Indeed, that is exactly what the Confederation is attempting. But movement through the gateway is ultimately a product of using one's own catalyst in discovering that the Creator already within you. As Ra says, the material for your understanding is the self, the mind-body-spirit complex. And that Creator within you, says Ra, is brought into being through the work of the North Pole. This work is, I believe, what Ra calls the study of being. The self is not a doer here, per se. The self is an I am. And when the heart is opened, and the mind and body sufficiently balanced, and the spirit shuttle awakened, The doorway to one's true nature is silence and stillness. The deepest experience of the inner light may be none other than conscious resting in the neti, not this, not that, of utter stillness and silence. In my read of mystical literature, the seeker abides and rests here. The seeker holds their attention in this holy place, allowing the mystery to work upon she who has submitted herself in humbling trusting, without ever forgetting that there is ever work to do at the other half of the spectrum with the outer nature. To place one's attention solely on the inner nature without proper care to the outer nature is the fundamental form of spiritual bypassing. However, Ra indicates that through disciplined work over time, the lower centers can become crystallized to the extent that the adept then begins to do less of the preliminary or outer work having to do with function, and begins to affect the inner work, which has to do with being. As the adept becomes a more and more consciously crystallized entity, it gradually manifests more and more of that which it always has been since before time, that is, the one infinite creator. Kundalini, Inner Seeking meets the Cosmic Prana. Part 2, Will's Attractive Force. Will emanates from awareness of inner light. What is the mechanism driving the work with these two streams of the one energy? The will of the entity as it evolves is the single measure of the rate and fastidiousness of the activation and balancing of the various energy centers. How do we understand this will? We can start by looking at the effect that the will has upon the filtering of the universal light through the energy centers. In two different quotes, Ra describes this filtering process as being dependent upon two components. This point of ingress of the universal light energy is undifferentiated until it begins its filtering process through the energy centers. The requirements of each center and the efficiency with which the individual has learned to tap into the inner light determine the nature of the use made by the entity of these in-streamings. We have addressed the filtering process by which incoming energies are pulled upwards according to the distortions of each energy center and the strength of will or desire emanating from the awareness of inner light. Quote A is easy enough to understand. The distortions and requirements of the energy centers is the unique and various patterns of activation, blockage, balance, and eternal structure, some of which may be pre-incarnatively set for the duration of the incarnation. Basically, the configuration of your chakras. This is part of what filters that prana. Quote B speaks of the will. Energy is filtered and pulled accordingly to the entity's use of will. And in the bolded portions of the quotes above, the will is linked to the awareness of the inner light along with the seeker's ability to tap into that inner light. Of the inner light, Ra says, the inner light is that which is your heart of being. Its strength equals your strength of will to seek the light. Will's strength equals awareness of inner light and ability to tap the inner light. What is the inner light? Your heart of being, your true nature. So, as you become aware of your heart of being, the very heart of who you are, you become aware of the will inherited in your being. You become aware of the original desire. This is manifested in your desire, your thirst, your focus, your intensity, your sheer perseverance and fidelity to the path over the years and the testing. The longer you keep true to the original desire to persist in seeking the one in the face of distraction, confusion, dissipations of energy, needed periods of rest, etc., the more that the inner light itself, the heart of your being, is developed and strengthened. The Law of One philosophy is saturated with communication about the shaping, sacred, self-authorizing power of our will. Acceptance of self, forgiveness of self, and the direction of the will. This is the path towards the disciplined personality. Your facility of will is that which is powerful within you as co-creator. You cannot ascribe to this facility too much importance, thus it must be carefully used and directed in service to others for those upon the positively oriented path. Will attracts the upward spiraling light. As the self becomes more aware of the inner light and learns to pull efficiently, tap it. This then has the corollary effect of attracting and pulling the upward spiraling line of light, meaning that all the conscious seeking you are undertaking, the meditating, the contemplating, the attempts to open the heart and see the Creator in all things. This is increasing both the strength of the attraction through the South Pole and the type of attraction through the South Pole. To put it another way, your spiritual seeking, or whatever your desires are aimed upon, is configuring that which is attracted to you, evermore a function of conscious desire as you become a conscious being. Consider that that is precisely what is happening in the initiation process that unfolds in the Queen's Chamber of the Great Pyramid. In continuation of the quote above about the inner light, Ross says, "The Queen's Chamber position, or balanced position of a group, intensifies the amount of this will, the amount of awareness of the inner light necessary to attract the in-streaming light upward spiraling from the south magnetic pole of being. Thus, this is the place of the initiate. For many extraneous items or distortions will leave the entity as it intensifies its seeking, so that it may become one with this centralized and purified incoming light. One does not need a Queen's Chamber position in a great pyramid to perform this work. It is just a tool. But for the purpose of this essay, the Queen's Chamber position neatly illustrates the process. There we see the light gathered and focused like a magnifying glass, a concentrated opportunity to experience that which, for the rest of us, unfolds organically over time. And the process that unfolds in this chamber again illustrates the surrender of the work in the North Pole. The initiation of the Queen's Chamber has to do with the abandoning of self to such desire to know the Creator in full that the purified, in-streaming light is drawn through the South Pole in balanced fashion through all energy centers, meeting in indigo and opening the gate to intelligent infinity. Thus, the entity experiences true life, or, as your people call it, resurrection. QO also speaks to the development of the inner light and its corollary pull upon the upward spiraling light. Work in the discipline of the personality is indigo ray work, and it is facilitated greatly by persistent daily work on one's desire. For the more intense that desire, the more powerful will be that energy moving through the gateway to intelligent infinity from above, and the more powerful will be the pull that pulls that energy up from the root chakra and to the meeting with that inner light that is called by the mystical worker in consciousness. Each will receive the opportunity that each needs. Consider, if you will, the path your life experience complex has taken. Consider the coincidences and odd circumstances by which one thing flowed to the next. Consider this well. Each entity will receive the opportunity that each needs. Throughout the 106 sessions, Ra leaves so much room for ambiguity in the process of evolution, recognizing the uniqueness of all creations, the infinity of possibilities, and the unknown quality of mystery out of which it all arises. Here, however, they make an exception. They speak categorically in the assertion that each entity will receive the opportunity each needs. Not maybe or likely, but absolutely. Elsewhere in the raw material describes how that opportunity evolves as the entity evolves. They say that the opportunity is random and provided by the Logos for those beings early on in their development, beings who are not yet conscious. But as the path advances, and as the self awakens to the inner light, That which is attracted will be less and less random and more according to the shaping, programming forces of the entity's own will, desire, and seeking. This is all captured here. The sublogos, such as our sun, offers the catalyst at the lower levels of energy, the first triad. These have to do with the survival of the physical complex. The higher centers gain catalysts from the biases of the mind-body-spirit complex itself in response to all random and directed experiences. Thus, the less developed entity will perceive the catalyst about it in terms of survival of the physical complex with the distortions which are preferred. The more conscious entity, being conscious of the catalytic process, will begin to transform the catalyst offered by the sublogos into catalysts which may act upon the higher energy nexi. Thus, the sublogos can offer only a basic skeleton, shall we say, of catalysts. The muscles and flesh having to do with the, shall we say, survival of wisdom, love, compassion, and service are brought about by the action of the mind-body-spirit complex on basic catalysts, so as to create a more complex catalyst, which may in turn be used to form distortions within these higher energy centers. The more advanced the entity, the more tenuous the connection between the sublogos and the perceived catalyst until, finally, all catalyst is chosen, generated, and manufactured by the self for the self. It's as if we begin as children of the logos, and as we polarize and evolve, we discover our own logoic nature, our own capacities as co-creators. This process connects directly to the development of the relationship between the North and South Pole energy, the inner light and outer nature. In the phenomenon of somatics, I found a metaphor that helps me to understand this. This is when sand or other malleable substance is spread thinly over a surface and a particular frequency is projected or vibrated through the surface. The sand forms different geometric shapes based on the frequency. Change the vibration and the patterns changes. I see the will functioning as does the frequency vibrating the plate. The more that the entity develops the will, the more that the will or the being itself tunes to a particular frequency. That frequency then causes the sand to form itself into a particular geometric pattern. The sand in this metaphor represents the infinite possibilities available to us, at first randomly spread out, but increasingly drawn to us and formed into intelligible patterns that are unique to our frequency. As we become aware of and tap into our inner light, we transform the randomness into catalysts designed to meet our specific needs of learning. In other words, the vibration of our own will is, right now, intelligently shaping circumstance to conform to that which we seek and desire. The more conscious our desires, the more conscious this process. The more our desires are unknown to us or conflicted or fragmented, the more that life experience will unfold accordingly. This is the dynamic of the inner light, pulling to itself the upward spiraling light through the South Pole. But that which is pulled to us doesn't generally appear as some amorphous energy. Rather, that upward spiraling light arrives at our doorstep in the guise of other selves, situations, and opportunities. Not all of those attracted, example desired, opportunities will be pleasant. They may involve loss, limitation, sacrifice, or some difficult facing of the self. In fact, the more that we strengthen the inner light, the more that the situations that we attract are asking us to sacrifice our separate identities in order to be born to our true natures. There is no experience which is not purchased by effort of some kind, no act of service to self or others which does not bear a price to the entity manifesting, commensurate with its purity. All things in manifestation may be seen in one way or another to be offering themselves in order that transformations may take place upon the level appropriate to the action. The crux ansata is a part of the concept complexes of the archetypical mind. The circle indicating the magic of the spirit. The cross indicating the nature of manifestation which may only be valued by the losing. Thus, the crux ansata is intended to be seen as an image of the eternal in and through manifestation and beyond manifestation through the sacrifice and transformation of that which is manifest. When one merges this understanding with what Ra calls the law of responsibility, one sees how self-authorized the journey really is. And one sees how powerful and empowering an act it is to take responsibility for one's reality. Inner seeking meets the cosmic prana. How then are these two streams of energy balanced in dynamic relationship within the self? In the following passage, Dawn had just asked a question about when space-time is no longer in effect. Instead of a direct reply to that question, Ra takes the opportunity to speak of the balanced meeting and mating of the upward and downward spiraling lights in the mystical seeking of the One. In the experiences of the mystical search for unity, the mechanical concepts of space and time need never be considered, for they are but part of an illusionary system. The seeker seeks the One. This One is to be sought, as we have said, by the balanced and self-accepting self, aware both of its apparent distortions and its total perfection. Resting in this balanced awareness, the entity then opens the self to the universe which it is. The light energy of all things may then be attracted by this intense seeking, and wherever the inner seeking meets the attracted cosmic prana, realization of the One takes place. The purpose of clearing each energy center is to allow that meeting place to occur at the indigo ray vibration, thus making contact with intelligent infinity and dissolving all illusions. Service to others is automatic at the released energy generated by this state of consciousness. There is a lot to unpack in there. Let's start with wherever the inner seeking, North Pole, meets the attracted cosmic prana, South Pole, realization of the One takes place. I love the word wherever in that statement. It conveys to me that the Creator isn't just beyond and transcendent, though it is beyond all qualities, all things known, all objects, all that can be spoken and comprehended. But it is also immanent in everything. The Creator is realized here, and then here, and then here, and at every intersection of these two energies, including each meeting with another self, each function of the body, each incomprehensible and destructive aspect of our society, and each moment of mundanity in our lives. All things can be uplifted and transmuted into their holy, sacramental nature when they make contact with or are sanctified by the inner light within us. But the key takeaway for me personally is found in the following statement. This One is to be sought, as we have said, by the balanced and self-accepting self, aware both of its apparent distortions and its total perfection. I love the juxtaposition of apparent distortions with total perfection. The apparent distortions Ra highlights are those which are recognized in the work of the South Pole, or outer nature, but they are balanced always by the awareness of the total perfection of the self, which is recognized in the work of the North Pole, the work of faith which contemplates the self as the Creator. Distortion and perfection? It is a both, not an either or. Thus, no matter where we are on the evolutionary spectrum, no matter how distorted, stuck, or imbalanced, we are forever and always perfect, whole, and complete. Ra says that contemplation upon this understanding, the work of the North Pole, and the space for unconditional love and forgiveness that this contemplation opens is that which will heal and undistort the stuck energy of the South Pole. Perhaps we are undistorted, not because we remove distortions, though distortion does fall away, but rather because we accept our distortions in the knowing of self. In fact, what's better standpoint to create the space for self-acceptance, love, and forgiveness than to see all of life in the great context of perfection, wholeness, and completeness? The work of the two poles is done in tandem, and resting in this balanced awareness, the entity then opens the self to the universe which it is. In the same quote, Ra goes on to again highlight the way in which the inner seeking attracts the cosmic prana. The light energy of all things may then be attracted by this intense seeking. And wherever the inner seeking meets the attracted cosmic prana, realization of the One takes place. The work of contemplating the self and other self as the creator, as perfect, as whole, as complete, must meet the upward spiraling light. The inner light cannot ignore or suppress. It must integrate and eventually unify with the world of distortion and form. In my understanding, it is the center of the mind-body-spirit complex system that fully opens the way for this, the center of unconditional love. The gift of this quote has so much more to offer though. Ross says, the purpose of clearing each energy center is to allow that meeting place to occur at the indigo ray vibration, thus making contact with intelligent infinity and dissolving all illusions. What is the mother of all illusions but that there is a separate self inside you, living behind your eyes, in your skin? In fact, the greatest mystic whose words my eyes have encountered, Sri Ramana Maharishi, says that the entire universe itself arises only after the emergence of the I thought. The I thought is his term for that core seed from which springs the illusionary notion of a separate self. The thought of an individual I, he asserts, and I believe Ra would agree, is the root of all illusion. I believe that this connects to the why Ra describes the self-realized being as transparent in personality. What the self-realization undoes is the separate self. In that undoing, there is no solid self anymore. The universal light energy is then allowed full travel through this transparent structure of the mind-body-spirit complex. As Ra says, service to others becomes automatic in this state. It is automatic because in our true form, we are self-luminous. We are no longer just reflecting light. We are generating light. Each other self looking at us then is looking at the Creator through the surrendered, transparent personality structure. Ra says of the upward spiraling South Pole energy that the energy ingress ends with indigo. The violet ray is a thermometer or indicator of the whole. Thus, seeking the Creator is done not just in meditation and the work of an adept, but in the experiential nexus of each moment. Understand that all natural functions of the body have all aspects from dense to fine, and can be transmuted to what you may call sacramental. Kundalini, inner seeking meets the cosmic prana. Part 3. The Serpent, Metaphor and Caution. The rising of Kundalini has traditionally been symbolized as the rising and uncoiling of the serpent. According to Ra, the metaphor of the coiled serpent being called upwards is vastly appropriate for the seeker's consideration because this is what the seeker is attempting. As described above, the inner light is calling and uncoiling the power of the cosmic prana upward. But here is where we enter into a very, very important cautionary note to this work of raising the Kundalini or drawing the serpent upward. As an entity grows more polarized, this locus will move upwards. This phenomenon has been called by your peoples the Kundalini. However, it may better be thought of as the meeting place of cosmic and inner, shall we say, vibratory understanding. To attempt to raise the locus of this meeting without realizing the metaphysical principles of magnetism upon which this depends is to invite great imbalance. Using the Confederation philosophy, there are 3 basic ways I have interpreted this statement. Metaphysical principles of magnetism and balance. 1. The law of confusion, or free will, is utterly paramount in the workings of the infinite creation. That which is intended has as much intensity of attraction to the polar opposite as the intensity of the intention or desire. Thus, those whose desires are shallow or transitory experience only ephemeral configurations of what might be called the magical circumstance. There is a turning point, a fulcrum which swings as a mind-body-spirit complex tunes its will to service. If this will and desire is for service to others, the corresponding polarity will be activated. For instance, in the circumstance of this group, there are 3 such wills acting as one, with the instrument in the, shall we say, central position of fidelity to service. This is as it must be for the balance of the working and the continuance of the contact. Our vibratory complex is one-pointed in these workings also, and our will to serve is also of some degree of purity. This has created the attraction of the polar opposite which you experience, the dynamic tension of choice. One of my takeaways from this is that the strength of will is meaningless unless a choice is made in a state of dynamic tension between polar opposites. Wherever there is a choice, the opposite choice or energy, as something of a natural law, must be evident or present itself. Otherwise, it's no choice at all. This not precisely the type of balancing work that we do in service to see ourselves as creator, a 360-degree being, example, not the balancing exercises, but is rather the contrast provided in any given moment that allows for the magnitude of a choice to exist. For example, choosing between vanilla and chocolate ice cream likely represents a less powerful choice than choosing between vanilla ice cream and spinach. Just as choosing what to entertain yourself with on TV will have less metaphysical importance than choosing whether to participate in war. Greater contrast equals greater power of choice and greater strength of will, and vice versa. Those seeking to develop their will may design for and or attract to themselves extreme challenges that grant opportunity to test the intensity of the will. As the will develops, so too does the power to choose one's polarity, and it seems that Ra is indicating that the choice to polarize calls forth a corresponding amount of opposing energy in proportion to the strength of one's will, or magical personality, when making choices. Balancing opposites. Each possible thought, feeling, choice, energy, vibratory state, etc., is situated on a spectrum within a field of completeness and wholeness. In a way, a choice is a fragment of the whole that is made possible by the dynamic tension described above. In that field of tension, it is our honored duty to make many choices and to choose our path, and that necessarily involves balancing that tension. According to my second takeaway from this passage, in the journey towards the Creator, each choice must be balanced, and that necessarily involves balancing that tension, according to my second takeaway from this passage. In the journey towards the Creator, each choice must be balanced by its opposite, in order to transcend our partial perspective and experience ever deeper wholeness in the moment. This is evidenced in the discovery of the completeness within the mind. To begin to master the concept of mental discipline, it is necessary to examine the self. The polarity of your dimension must be internalized. Where you find patience within your mind, you must consciously find the corresponding impatience, and vice versa. Each thought that a being has in its turn an antithesis. The disciplines of the mind involve, first of all, identifying both those things of which you approve and those things of which you disapprove within yourself, and then balancing each and every positive and negative charge with its equal. The mind contains all things. Therefore, you must discover this completeness within yourself. Whether we consciously seek that balance by performing balancing exercises, or the universe seems to deliver to us balancing opportunities, such as in the case Ra describes above. Any movement in one direction will need to be balanced with its opposite for the movement to continue. That balance includes first seeing and then unconditionally loving that path, or person, or thing that is opposite. That is not chosen, and that seeing and that unchosen is viewed as part of the totality of self, loved and accepted, but not chosen. One potential way of elaborating on this principle is to say that any seeker of the light requires the facing, accepting, loving, integrating, and balancing the darkness within the self, within others, and within the creation. Metaphysical principles of magnetism and balance, 2. Your facility of will is that which is powerful within you as co-creator. You cannot ascribe to this facility too much importance. Thus, it must be carefully used and directed in service to others for those upon the positively oriented path. There is great danger in the use of the will as the personality becomes stronger, for it may be used even subconsciously in ways reducing the polarity of the entity. In the awakening and rising of the coiled serpent, one is learning to strengthen, empower, and exercise their facility of will. In the awakening and rising of the coiled serpent, one is learning to strengthen, empower, and exercise their facility of will. In this process, more power or higher voltage energy is coming into the system. This strengthened will and higher energy is helpful for the great work, but this energy may also be hijacked, so to speak, by blockages and imbalances unattended to in the energy system. Thus, a repressed, unresolved, or unhealed blockage may grab hold of the will and wield it, as it were, according to the logic of that blockage. This may potentially lead to disintegration. This is said quite well in another way by the Buddhist teacher Kin McLeod. Finally, there is one pitfall in meditation practice that you must avoid. Meditation practice raises the level of energy in your system in the form of active attention. The higher level of energy inevitably brings you into contact with reactive emotional patterns. If you now become selective and repress emotions, pushing them out of attention, two things happen. The higher level of energy in your system flows into the reactive pattern, making that stronger. Both the reactive patterns of the emotion and the repression are reinforced. You end up splitting in two. One part of you is capable of attention and response. The other part becomes increasingly rigid and inflexible. It takes over unpredictably whenever the repressed emotion is triggered by events or situations. Typically, a person becomes more arrogant, self-indulgent, obsessed with power, money, sex, security, or other fixations, and acts in ways to control or amass the object of obsession. Long-term practitioners and teachers who protect areas of their lives from their practice frequently run into this problem with unfortunate and sometimes tragic results. We run the risk of a similar fate if we protect any area of our personality or lives from the increased awareness that develops in meditation. To protect against this problem, always have at least one person, a teacher, colleague, or friend with whom you discuss all aspects of your practice and your life. The person needs to be someone you trust and to whom you will listen, regardless of the state of mind you are in or what he or she says. The only way to be sure that you will not protect an area of your habituated personality from the effects of practice is to have such a person in your life. Part of the work of keeping the will focused upon polarizing and seeking is simply the act of keeping the attention upon polarizing and seeking. That is, the self must consciously direct the will towards answering the highest questions of love, service, and seeking. How may I give or receive love in this situation? How may I serve the other self or other selves? How may I work towards harmony, understanding, support? How may I honestly and vulnerably recognize myself? How may I give praise and thanksgiving? If the conscious mind is not directing the questions, then other, less light-filled areas of the personality will be happy to take the reins. Metaphysical principles of magnetism and balance. 3. There is a correlation between the energy field of an entity of your nature and of planetary bodies, for all material is constructed by means of the dynamic tension of the magnetic field. The lines of force in both cases may be seen to be much like the interweaving spirals of the braided hair. Thus positive and negative wind and interweave, forming geometric relationships in the energy fields of both persons, as you would call a mind-body-spirit complex, and planets. There are two, as Ross said, sensible methods for the awakening and rising of Kundalini. There is the work at the north end of the spectrum, which is, in short, the contemplation of the Creator and the Self as the Creator. But the seeker is not simply seeking transcendence or escape from the realities of the lived life. On the other end of the spectrum, then there is the work of the South Pole, the digging into and finding the Creator immanent in the grit of one's daily life experience, relationships, family, job, sexuality, bodily health, emotional well-being, personal identity, etc. But the seeker is not limiting the perspective to just these outer roles and identities. These are all energies of self, and in reaching upward, the lower end needs to be accepted, balanced, and integrated into the self. Ra speaks to the failure to do so. We see the so-called insanity, which may often arise when an entity attempts to polarize more quickly than experience may be integrated. We have advised and suggested caution and patience in previous communications, and do so again, using this example of the over-hasty opening of polarization without due attention to the synthesized and integrated mind-body-spirit complex. To know yourself is to have the foundation upon firm ground. Qo has spoken to the integration of North and South Pole energies well. The principles of magnetism have to do with polarity. The strength of a polarized field is that strength which appreciates both the positive and the negative poles of the magnet, so that it is understood that there is virtue and value in both that South Pole and that North Pole. Oftentimes, entities who are thirsty and hungry for spiritual meat simply keep attempting to move higher and higher within the energy body, upwards into the realms of higher communication, high wisdom, high faith, and so forth, without giving an equal amount of attention to that energy which is coming through the energy body from the South Pole, from the Earth itself. The group known as Ra was suggesting that as one seeks to open the higher chakras, it is equally necessary to continue to give full honor, respect, and attention to the health and the vibrancy of the lower chakras as well, and to appreciate and honor that energy which has come from the one infinite creator, to the sun, into the womb of the earth, and then from the earth up through the feet, and the base of the chakra system at the base of the spine is infinite supply. There needs to be a continuing and equal appreciation of this energy and all that it suggests of morality and limitation. For indeed, morality is a limitation, and the presence of a seeker upon the earth plane partakes of this morality and this limitation. It makes a much sweeter thing of being alive and aware to realize one's limited tenure within the earth plane, instead of scorning things of the earth because they are illusionary. Then, the one known as Ra is suggesting that one embrace and enjoy and take part in the things that are fleeting, relishing and celebrating the energies of each chakra. Sexuality, relationships, group relationships, all of these energies are worthy. All of these energies take daily, thoughtful maintenance in order for each chakra to shine and be completely open to the energy of the one infinite creator as it moves from the earth in upward spiraling fashion. Only when this motion upwards is fully seated and working well can the seeker then call through the gateway of intelligent infinity for that inspiration which comes from the infinite and invisible world of time-space. The heart of evolution, the fundamental teachings. Questioner: is there then, from the point of view of an individual who wishes to follow the service to others path from our present position in third density, is there anything of importance other than disciplines of personality, knowledge of self, and strengthening of will? I am Ra. This is technique. This is not the heart. Let us examine the heart of evolution. Let us remember that we are all one. This is the great learning teaching. In this unity lies love. This is the great learned teaching. In this unity lies light. This is the fundamental teaching of all planes of existence in materialization. Unity, love, light, and joy. This is the heart of evolution of the spirit. The second ranking lessons are learned, taught in meditation and in service. At some point, the mind-body-spirit complex is so smoothly activated and balanced by the central thoughts or distortions that the techniques you have mentioned become quite significant. However, the universe, its mystery unbroken, is one. Always begin and end in the Creator, not in technique.